So what we're going to look at today is something called a function. And functions are all like relationships in that they relate two things to each other. So we're going to have an x variable, or something called an input, related to a y variable, which is what we're going to call an output. And so we need some terminologies to deal with this. And we're going to use some terminology, and one is called domain. And domain is a set of elements in the relationship that we input into the function. Okay, and the range is the second set of elements in a relationship that is the output of the function. So, for example, we have in the first table here, we have our domain. The domain is the input into the function, or the function or relationship. The domain here is the age. Okay, so we have ages of 16, 17, 19, and 21. We also have something called the range. The range would then be the output, okay, of the function. So in this case here, the person is the output. So when we input the age, we get an output of the person who matches that age. So the age of 16 matches Paris. Age of 17 matches two people, Tara Lynn and Molly. So there's this relationship between age and person. The age of 19 relates to Sammy and Ashley. And the age of 21 looks like it relates to Julia and Joy. So there's this relationship of age to person. Okay? And a function is a special type of relationship. So really functions are essentially relations, but there is a slight restriction to functions in that functions are a special type of relation where each element in the domain is associated with only one element in the range. So in this case here, this domain and range doesn't quite work for the function, okay, because we have the input relating to, in this case, and the problem is not age of 16 to Paris, but we have the age of 17 relating to two different people. Okay, so that doesn't pass this function test where the domain is associated with only one element in the range. Okay, so here's again, it's a problem here because one element in the domain is associated with two elements in the range. And same thing here. Okay, so this is not a function. So although this is a relationship, okay, so it is not a function. So this is still a relationship. Okay, because we're still relating the age to a person, but this is not a function because we have this problem of one input is related to two outputs. So we have this other function here where we actually relate the person to the age. Okay, so it's actually the same relationship, but now we've just done it in the reverse order. So we said now that the input is the person. That's my domain. Okay, so there's my domain. And notice that my domain has changed from here. This originally was my domain, the age was my domain, and the person was the range, or the output. Now, the domain is a person, and the range is the age. And when we do this, the way we've now arranged it, it's essentially the same relationship, but now in this case, we can consider this a function. So although the relationship is essentially the same, this is now a proper function because each person only has one age. Okay, so each age has more than one person, and this is by nature of how things work. A person cannot be 21 and 19 at the same time. So Julia only has one output or one range associated with her. Ashley has only one output or one range associated with her. Although her age matches Sammy, Sammy does not have two ages, so her input does not match two different outputs, still matches only one age. So everyone only has one age. So this is now considered a function. Okay, and that differs slightly from this one here. So the distinction between function and relationships is quite it's a very fine distinction. We have to be really careful. Okay, but this is essentially the problem here, is that we have 1 going to 2. Here we have 2 going to 1 is okay, but 1 going to 2 is a problem. So this is what we're looking for. So here, the 1 going to 2, in this arrow diagram, we can see, yeah, this one input has 2 outputs. One domain, element in the domain, relates to 2 elements in the range. That is not a function. So it does not pass the function test because of that. Okay, so that one element here ruins it. It is not a function because of that issue. Here, this is okay. We have, this is not a function as well, because we have this one element relating to 2 elements in the range. So again, it is not a function. We have this 1 to 2 issue here. It's not a function. Okay, so this is how we determine whether something is a function or not. It does also ask us to state what is the domain and range in examples above. So this is our domain here in our range. We switch the domain and range to make it a function. Here's our domain and range, and in this case here, our domain is going to be, we have it listed here, our domain is 1, 4, 2, and our range is 0, -5, +5, and 2. So those are domain and ranges that we state. Okay, and we're not going to get too much into this, but we can also write our domain as in set notation. So I'll give you an example here. Our domain, we can list in set notation and say that the domain is, I don't really know what it is, but we can know that the elements in the domain are 1, 2, and 4. Okay, and then we can list our range here. The range, I'm not exactly sure what the range is, but the elements in the range are going to be -5, 0, 2, and 5. Okay, so those are elements in the range.